Hello everyone, Allison from the Mother Speaks Tarot. Welcome Facebook friends, welcome YouTube subscribers, YouTube viewers. This is me reading my book. I'm an author, Perception, the Two Yet One, Book 1. This will be chapters 2 and 3. Okay? Just go ahead and pick up where I left off. Didn't take me that long, so I decided to do another video. Chapter 2, Changes. Thursday, August 26th, 1999. North Highlands, a suburb of Sacramento, California. Sunny's mother didn't seem right this morning. It was Sunny's first day of kindergarten, and she had been excited for him a few days ago, but she wasn't paying attention to Sunny the way she usually did, and she kept checking out the windows while he got dressed for school. Now, as they stood on the sidewalk in front of his new classroom, Sunny was filled with a feeling, no, a certainty, that he would never see his mother again. "No, don't leave me, Mama." Sunny's mama focused on her 5-year-old, her eyes like a watery sky. "Don't worry, sunshine. I'll be back in just a few hours, and we'll go to the park before your brothers get home. We'll lie on the grass and look for bugs. Then we'll look at the sky and find shapes in the clouds, okay?" "No! I'm afraid I'm never going to see you again." The light that usually shone from his mother's face dimmed as soon as he said that, as if she believed him. She sniffled, gathered him into her arms, and held him close, singing a verse of "You Are My Sunshine" softly to him. "You're my good, sweet boy. Don't be afraid, my sunshine. You'll make it through the day. Be good and brave, my little man. I love you, sweetheart." The tears dropped from her eyes and she swallowed hard. "Forever." Sunny burst into tears, and she held him tight. After a few moments, she handed him off to his teacher, who kept him from running after her, waving and blowing him kisses as she drove away. Sunny's mother seemed to be crying too. Change in perspective, Corona, California. Luna woke sobbing. She had been dreaming that her mother had died. Now she realized she was in her room, and she heard stirring in her parents' room. Her mother, hearing her cry, would be in soon to check on her. As she tried to catch her breath and staring, Luna noticed that the shadows in her room seemed to be moving. Terror froze her. Eyes as wide as saucers, she watched intently. Yes, they were moving, wriggling, slithering, and jerking. She closed her eyes tight and said a prayer. "God, I know you protect me. Please help my guardian angel protect me." "He's always protecting you," said a soft, kind, male voice that was not her father's. Luna's eyes popped open, but, curiously, she wasn't scared. Sitting at the end of her bed was an old man in a button-down shirt, cozy red sweater, and dark gray old man pants. It still didn't occur to her to be afraid, even though his eyes were purple. "Hello, Luna. I'm Michael, your friend." Change in perspective. Sunny sat in his mother's light brown chair in his living room, dust in the wind, a song his mother liked to play on her guitar for her boys, running softly through his mind. His favorite cartoon, Dragon Ball Z, was on the TV, but he wasn't watching it. He was staring into space and soaking up what was left of his mother's energy. He was exhausted. He had been crying almost non-stop since his mother died on his first day of kindergarten. There had been a lot of crying in his family since that day, and some yelling and other sounds of chaos. Right now, it was relatively quiet, but the quiet was awful and sad and seemed to saturate every inch of the house with a certain coldness. All the warmth was gone, all the good smells, all the laughter, all the fun. It was all gone. It was like all the light in the house had faded. The light of all their lives, his mother, Lucy, whose name she had told them meant light, was gone. Just gone. She had died of a sudden problem inside of her head, a word Sonny couldn't remember. But he did remember that he would never see her again. Never. She was with God, someone he didn't like right now. His father had been very angry that morning, the first weekend since they had buried his mom, and was outside mowing the lawn to clear his head. Curtis and Brad were at friends' houses. Ralphie sat across from Sonny, but he was also staring into space. Sonny had been watching things change in Ralphie. A shadow had come over his face. His eyes didn't twinkle anymore. Those slight changes had had a major effect. The angles and shapes that had made Ralphie look impish, almost like Peter Pan, suddenly made him look like the devil. And Sonny was afraid of him. Since their mother's death, Ralphie hit his brothers a lot more. Sonny heard his father cursing up a storm outside, but was too lost in memories of his mother to care, and barely noticed Ralphie begin to breathe harder and harder. Suddenly, Sonny was flying out of their mother's chair, and Ralphie was on top of him, just wailing on him, cursing and calling him terrible names. Completely caught off guard, Sonny could only curl up into a ball, his hands and arms up over his head. Sonny imagined that he was made of steel, like Superman. Ralphie was 8 now, and very strong. Sonny hoped that Ralphie would remember that he loved Sonny, and that would make Ralphie stop. But Ralphie didn't stop. He hit Sonny in the head, face, and chest, and even kicked his baby brother in the gut as the mower hummed outside. The pain was intense, and Sonny was bleeding from various places. He began to get dizzy and sleepy, and didn't perceive the abrupt silence from outside. Suddenly the door opened, and the sunlight poured into the house, onto Sonny. Ralphie still didn't stop. "Ralphie, no! Oh, Lord Almighty! What are you doing?" Sonny felt Ralphie stop pounding on him, and then he heard a crash. He forced his eyes open. It seemed his father had tossed Ralphie across the room, and Ralphie had landed against an end table, knocking it over and sending all that was on it crashing to the floor. Ralphie shook his head to clear it just before Sonny's eyes rolled up into his. Ralph grabbed Sonny's face to make him look at him. Sonny couldn't. "Sonny! Sonny boy, you hear me? Can you hear me, boy?" Sonny tried to answer with words, but could only gurgle. He tasted blood. Change in perspective later on. Sonny heard rhythmic beeping, and then, again, his name. A kind male voice, not that of anyone in his family. It took a lot of effort, but he opened his eyes. An old man in a red sweater was sitting on the edge of his bed. Sonny wasn't in his own bed. He didn't know where he was and couldn't see very well. Sunshine, my name is Michael. I'm your friend. Michael's voice was soothing, and Sunny wasn't alarmed at all that he was there. It was as if he already knew Michael. Gently, Michael rested his hand on Sunny's ankle. Sunny felt very tired and then went back to sleep. Change in perspective. Monday afternoon, September 6th, 1999. Sunny had seen sheriffs in some of the cowboy movies his father watched, and a for-real sheriff visited him in the hospital just before he went home, after 2 days in the hospital. When Sunny told him it was Ralphie who heard him, the sheriff, who said his name was McDaniel, which reminded Sunny's rattled brain of hamburgers, or was that a different name? He asked him if he was sure that it wasn't their father, which confused and insulted Sunny. Sunny knew the difference between his father and his brother. It didn't matter that their names were the same. No one seemed to understand Sunny about anything he said. When Sunny told his family about Michael's visit, no one knew who Michael was. Ralph suggested he was a classmate's grandpa who had decided to visit with Sunny. But then Ralph got on the phone right away to report the stranger to the hospital. The hospital released Sunny after that, and now he was playing with Curtis and Brad in Brad's room. He hadn't seen Ralphie yet, which was fine with him. Sunny had been scared about coming home, but he also hadn't wanted to stay in the hospital any longer. This felt all right, just playing with his brothers, his nice brothers. "Boys," called their father from the living room. "Come on in here, all ya. We're going to have a talk." Sunny, Curtis, and Brad all found places to sit in the living room. Ralphie's bedroom door opened slowly, and then he stepped out, scowling, bruises on his face and arms. Ralphie glared hardest of all at Sunny. Sunny was glad he had chosen a seat between Curtis and Brad. "All right, boys," said Ralph as he sat down in his chair with a grunt and a cold beer. "Things are going to change around here again." He took a big gulp from his beer and then burped loudly. His eyes looked strange, tired. His voice sounded sleepy. "Your mom ain't here no more. She's with God and all that, God rest her soul. So, I'm the only one left. And like I said, things gotta change." Sunny and his brothers all nervously glanced at each other. Sunny was sensing that Curtis and Brad had some thoughts, that things had happened already while he'd been in the hospital. "Instead of the pool we were going to put in, we're going to build a fighting ring in the backyard, and y'all are going to learn how to fight. Not just that, but you're going to learn how to take a beating, too. I'm going to teach you, and you're all going to pay attention or you'll be sorry. Got that?" No one said or did anything. They were all too shocked at what he'd just said. "Got that?" All of his boys nodded repeatedly. "All right. Good. Y'all are going to help me build it and its house, so you'll learn construction skills for when you're older and need a job. Now, the Army don't put up with no bullshit, and neither will I. You're going to do it right, or you'll be punished. Period. I ain't putting up with no more of this spoiled kid crap. No more timeouts, 'cause they don't work. You know what works? A smack on your ass, that's what. And if y'all push me, I'll get my belt like your granddaddy used to. Understand?" Sunny and his brothers all nodded, sadly. "And one last thing. No more crying. We've all been crying around here non-stop, and I'm done. Real men ain't weak like that. It's time to be strong." Chapter 3. Michael. Saturday morning, September 11th, 1999. It's September 11th today. North Highlands, California. It had been a week since Ralphie hurt Sonny. No one, not even his father, explained to Sonny why Ralphie had attacked him. After a few days, Sonny stopped asking, guessing that Ralphie hated him. The two boys kept their distance, and it helped that Ralph wouldn't leave them alone together. He, Brad, or Curtis, and often all three, were always there. This morning, Sonny felt well enough to go outside, and he sat in the backyard's cool grass, playing with his favorite toy, his old red Power Ranger. "Morning, sunshine," said a familiar voice. Sonny turned around. It was the old man who visited him in the hospital, Michael. Sonny's still bruised and swollen face lit up as he smiled as best he could. "Hi, Michael. The people at the hospital said you weren't real. They looked for you on the videos that keep people safe, but they didn't see you. I gotta go get my dad so he can see you're real. I'm not supposed to talk to strangers." A gentle smile touched Michael's kind, purple eyes. His white hair was beautiful, his red sweater looked cozy, and his dark gray pants were almost as shiny as metal. "No, no, little man," said Michael kindly. "I'm not a stranger. I'm your friend. You and your family just don't remember me yet, and your father is busy right now. I'll see him later." Sonny accepted Michael's take on the situation without even thinking about it. "Okay. Now," said Michael as he sat down on the grass across from Sonny, "if you're the Red Ranger, who can I be?" "I can go get one of my other Rangers. Do you want to be white, blue, green, or black?" "Where's the pink one, Sunshine?" "Pink? That's a Girl Ranger." "Who's out there?" said another voice, this one just as familiar as Michael's, but definitely not as nice. Sonny turned around. The neighbor's head popped up over the fence. She stared at Sonny for a few moments, her face sour. "Just making sure you weren't in my yard." "Who were you talking to, kid?" she demanded. Sonny turned around. Michael was gone. Sunday morning, September 9th, 2001. Corona, California. 7-year-old Luna sat in her catechism class while her parents were at Mass. She waved her arm high in the air, straining to get it higher still. She couldn't wait to ask her question. Finally, her teacher, a kind older lady, pointed to her. "Yes, Luna?" "Why do ghosts haunt people?" Her question seemed to startle her teacher. "Oh, well, we don't believe in ghosts. We, as Catholics, believe that good souls go to heaven and bad souls go to hell. But what about good ghosts? Ghosts that help you? If you ever see what you think is a ghost, don't talk to it. It's Satan lying to you so that you'll be his friend, so that he can have your soul. That's how he gets you." Luna's eyes nearly popped out of her head. Her heart began racing and her scalp felt prickly. She felt like all of her hair was standing up. She was thinking about Michael, the old man who only showed up at the end of her bed in the middle of the night when she was scared. Luna was completely silent as she and her family left church that morning. Unusual behavior not unnoticed by her parents. "What's wrong, Luna?" asked her father as they arrived home. "Why are you so quiet?" Luna didn't answer him. She didn't want to. Her lips trembled. "Just spit it out, Luna," ordered her mother. "Okay, I'm scared of Satan." "What? Who was talking about Satan?" Luna's thoughts were always interesting to her parents, but this felt particularly strange. Then it seemed to dawn on her mother. Oh, honey, not everything the church teaches is true. What? Then why do we go? It's good for us for a lot of other stuff. Just ask me or your dad when something's scary or confusing, and we'll try to clear it up for you. Like right now. Honey, I don't even think that Satan exists. Yes, he does, cried Luna. My teacher said so. And that ghosts aren't real, even the nice ones. 'Cause they're actually Satan trying to trick you into giving him your soul. Then you go straight to hell. Honey, calm down, said Lisa. She glanced at Jim. She wasn't happy. Why are you thinking about ghosts? Asked Jim, very focused on Luna. Well, because one is my friend. Luna's parents became alarmed, scaring her even more. What do you mean, Luna? Asked her mother, very serious now. My friend Michael. He's an old man. He's really nice and keeps me company when I can't sleep. He only comes at night. He sits at the end of my bed. I don't know how he gets in my room, so he has to be a ghost. Is he the only one? The only one I can see and hear, yeah. Jim and Lisa looked a little relieved. Honey, I think Michael is an imaginary friend. A lot of people have them. And you never knew any of your grandparents, so that's probably why you created a grandpa. The next time you see him, how about you introduce him to us? I've tried that. He disappears. Honey, are you afraid of him? I am now. Then tell him you don't want to talk to him anymore. If he doesn't go away, come get me, and we'll pray to God, and God will help you. Fast forward here to 12:01 a.m., Tuesday, September 11th, 2001. 7-year-old Sonny hid under his covers. The shadows were at it again. The shadows pulsed, jerked, and melted into different shapes in the corners of his room. It looked like they were traveling from corner to corner now. They're getting stronger. Although this happened nightly since his mother's death, he never could stop being surprised at how they moved, how all of this was actually real, how every so often they whispered his name. He wanted to be a scientist one day, and his father said scientists didn't believe in supernatural things like ghosts. But Sonny knew the shadows were ghosts, supernatural beings of some kind. They were definitely intelligent, conscious, and sometimes playful. But he was afraid of all of them because he didn't know which ones were nice and which weren't. He shut his eyes tight and said a strong prayer. Please, God, please keep me safe. Me, my brothers, and my dad. Please take care of my pain, take away my pain, and when I'm afraid, please just take it all away. Protect me, us, with all the angels you can spare, please, sir. And please fill me with your love and light. Please hug Mama for me. Okay, I love you, God. Please help me sleep. Sonny finally nodded off and had wonderful dreams of his mother. 9 a.m., Tuesday, September 11th, 2001. Corona, California. Luna woke up and checked her clock. She'd overslept. Her mother hadn't come in to wake her for school. Still in a sleepy fog, she got out of bed, went to her door and opened it. Her parents were watching the TV in the living room. As soon as she stepped out of the hall, her father turned the TV off. Oh, good morning, Princess, said Jim. Hi, honey, said Lisa. What's going on? It's not the weekend. Wasn't Monday yesterday? The world's going haywire, mumbled Jim. What? What do you mean? Luna was awake now, eyes wide with fear. Lisa sighed and gave Jim a disapproving look. What's going on today on the news is too hard for little kids to hear, but we're all fine, and we're going to stay fine, okay? Said her mother. Now listen to me, Luna. We don't want you to watch TV today. We'll tell you what happened another time. You can eat your cereal in your room and play in there. None of us are going anywhere today. We need to watch the news, so Daddy and I might not get a chance to play with you. You never should have left. How'd this get past them? Luna heard her father say as she fixed her cereal. You really think you could have stopped any of this, Jim? I don't know. Maybe. I just don't understand how this happened. In her room, Luna put her bowl of cereal down on her dresser. She had a sickening feeling and couldn't eat. This was clearly not a normal level of something going wrong. She had to find out what had happened. She cracked her door open. Her parents didn't move from the TV, so she continued inching forward until she could hear the news clearly. That didn't mean she understood clearly, but an hour later, she knew the adults didn't know much either, and that, yes, things had gone terribly wrong, worse than anyone could have ever imagined, and it wasn't over. After a day of sneakily watching the news, Luna lay in her bed crying quietly and shivering. She couldn't run to her parents for comfort, because then they would know she had disobeyed them. It was almost midnight, way past her bedtime of 9 o'clock, but she couldn't sleep. Lots of people had suffered horribly before they died today. Lots of them. Luna had seen the plane hit the World Trade Center, and the buildings burning, the people jumping, and then the buildings falling. The images replayed in her mind. The poor people, the suffering, innocent people. How could God allow things like that to happen? Don't worry, Luna, said a familiar voice. It was Michael, sitting at the end of her bed. She shut her eyes tight. No, Michael, I command you to go away. I don't want to talk to you anymore. She opened one eye. He was gone. Suddenly very tired, she felt right to sleep. Change in perspective. When Sonny woke, he noticed that it was late, 9 o'clock. No one had awakened him for school. Confused, he went out into the living room and saw his father and 3 brothers with bed hair and in their pajama pants watching TV. What's going on? Why is everybody home? He asked, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. Bad shit's happening today, Sonny, answered his father in a tone he'd never heard his father use before. Ralph sounded, was it afraid? Armageddon's coming, continued Ralph. There's too many bad people in charge, and there just ain't no way around it, especially not after today. Civilization is on the brink of destruction. This is exactly why I'm teaching y'all how to hunt, fish, track, camp, and survive in the wild. All that shit. We got everything ready to go if we need to. In fact, now that you're up, Sonny, let's go over plans A through C one more time. As Sonny sat down, his brothers groaned. Ralph was always drilling this shit into their heads. All right, plan A. We stick together and call the cops. It's pretty simple, said Ralph, without acknowledging the groans. Now, plan B, no cops. For some reason, they can't help, and it's better that they ain't informed of what's going on. I'm the decoy, so y'all follow Ralphie to the rendezvous site. He's given me his word as a man that he'll never hurt Sonny or any of y'all again. In fact, he's convinced me that he's going to protect y'all like a good big brother. So I want y'all to listen to every single word he says. Got me? Curtis, Brad, and Sonny all looked at Ralphie, who nodded at them to confirm their father's statement. Curtis, Brad, and then Sonny nodded in agreement at their father. still afraid of Ralphie. Sonny glanced at Curtis. Curtis winked at and smiled at him. Sonny felt relief. All right, and last, worst case scenario, plan C. No cops, because they can't be trusted at that point. I'm still the decoy, and we split up. I go one way, and y'all go another way. Leave town. Go underground, undercover. If things are real bad, y'all might need to split up. If that happens, you need to go totally different directions. But do your best to stay together. Stick by Ralphie if you can. You get your fake IDs and passports if you can, and just get the hell out of Dodge. We'll find each other later by checking all our rendezvous sites and phone numbers and shit like that. We will continue to update periodically. Got it? All of Ralph's boys nodded. He looked at Ralphie. You got Brayburn's card, boy? Yeah, it's in my wallet, Dad. Remember, Brayburn's my buddy from the war. He'll take care of y'all if you need him to. Got it? Sonny nodded wearily along with his brothers. Ralph had had this Armageddon talk with them countless times. It had started before their mother died, but it had intensified since then. Sonny, I want you to remember that your most important job will be to do exactly as your brothers and I say. Understand? Sonny hated being the youngest, being treated like a baby all the time. He scowled, but answered his father. Yeah, Dad. You do your best to stay with Ralphie or your other brothers. You're the one son I don't need going off on his own if at all possible. Because you're the youngest. Got that, Sonny? Ralph was agitated all day, much more than Sonny had ever seen him, except when Sonny's mother died. When Ralph was this stressed, he usually drank. But Ralph didn't drink today. He said that he wanted to be clear-headed so that he could stay on alert. Sonny and his family spent the entire day in front of TV, watching the news on CNN and talking about preparing to survive what was coming. He watched the second plane hit the World Trade Center, the fires, the people jumping, and the buildings falling. He thought he'd probably seen too much, but no one else seemed to notice or care about how much he'd seen. Once Ralph realized that they wouldn't have to run for their lives, he picked up dinner. Fast food again. Everyone got out TV trays. I miss Mama's cooking and our dinners at the table, said Sonny. Your Mama was an angel from heaven, said Ralph, and then he cleared his throat, took another bite from his burger. That meant everyone else needed to keep from crying too. Hey, everyone, Ralphie said. I have something I want to tell you. He was interrupted by a knock at the door. Ralphie got up and answered the door. It was his best friend for the past year, their neighbor Dustin, a dirty blonde surfer kid Ralphie's age, 10. Just checking on my bros, Dusty said. Ralphie closed the door behind him. Today's pretty scary. Dusty noticed their dinner. Aw, man, give me some fries. Ralphie gave him half of his fries. Ralph frowned and spoke with his mouth full. Why are you coming over here and eating our dinner again, Dusty? Don't you have your own? Come on now. Ralph didn't like Dusty eating their food because Dusty's family had just come into money, and Dusty was not in danger of starving. I gotta tell you guys 2 things, replied Dusty. Some news I thought you all would want to know, Mr. F. Well, I was just in the middle of saying something. That thing I told you about, said Ralphie. Oh, okay, man. Shoot, replied Dusty, sitting back and stuffing fries into his mouth. Okay, said Ralphie. What I was going to say is that I've decided on what I want to be called. It's a shortened version of my middle name. Our middle name, Dad. Weston. I want to be called Wes. Everyone in the room was quiet. Wes, eh? Asked Ralph. Sounds better than Ralphie. You're too old for that anyway. Yeah? Asked Wes. You like it? Yeah, said Ralph. Curtis, Brad, and Sonny all nodded. Okay, I'm Wes now. I kind of hate Ralphie, and I just want to leave that kid behind. Wes didn't look at Sonny when he said that, but Sonny somehow knew that Wes was talking about how Ralphie had beaten him almost to death. As Wes, Ralph Jr. wanted to be better than Ralphie. In his own way, Ralph Jr. had let Sonny know that he was sorry, and that made Sonny's heart feel good. "See," said Dusty, "I knew they'd like it." "Yeah. So, what did you want to say, Dusty?" "First, I don't know if y'all have been hearing, but your mean-ass neighbor lady, the one with the pool that she won't let us swim in, been talking shit about Sonny, telling everyone up and down the street that he's always talking to himself and that she's really freaked out about it. Thinks there's something seriously wrong with you, Sonny." "Yeah," Ralph scoffed around a mouthful of burger. "He's a kid and shit. He plays with his toys, probably imaginary friends. He's not talking to himself. He's, talking by himself. Right, Sonny?" Sonny realized, right at that moment, that Michael was a ghost. The shadows at night. Now he was even more afraid and didn't think he'd ever sleep again. "Does that woman seriously have so little to do that she'd pick on a little kid like that?" Curtis said. "Yeah, well, seems like some people believe her, so just, I don't know, egg her house or something." A half-chewed fry fell out of Dusty's mouth as he laughed. Ralph cut him a look. Dusty quickly pulled himself together and said, "Oh, and second thing, we're moving. Not sure where yet, but..." Sonny had stopped listening. He knew he could feel his mother, but to actually see a ghost. And Michael must not be a good ghost, because he was the reason people thought Sonny was weird or crazy. It was as if he'd set Sonny up. "Michael, I know you can hear my thoughts. Do me a favor. Don't talk to me anymore. I mean it." Change in perspective. The ancient man's informant, Bernard Schultz, turned and bowed before his master. "Mission accomplished, sire. Your plan went perfectly, seamlessly. America is writhing in pain. Its death throes begun." The master was silent. He didn't even move. Schultz knew to go on. "With your permission, I shall now carry out the subsequent directive, the recession, and increased SAC control." The master bowed his head ever so slightly. "Thank you, sire." Change in perspective. 5 p.m., Easter Sunday, April 20th, 2003. "Luna, close your eyes." But he was too late. She saw it. A dead squirrel in the road on their way home from church. Her mouth fell open. Deeply sensitive and sympathetic, Luna almost always burst into tears whenever she saw roadkill and old and sick people. The Martin family had already presided over several roadkill funerals and had a small roadkill cemetery in their yard. Pretty much any kind of suffering could send Luna plummeting into a hole of sadness and despair, causing her to cry for hours, and sometimes she was left saddened for days after. But because she was already a big girl of 9 years, she fought to control herself this time, and the tears fell silently down her cheeks. "Oh, honey," said Lisa, "don't worry. The squirrel is with God now. He was a good squirrel, and God is petting him right now." Luna knew her mother was right, but the tears still ran down her face, even hours later, as they started Easter dinner. Fortunately, the ham, potato salad, fruit salad, candied yams, and dinner rolls helped to cheer her up, and full and happy again, the little family sat down in front of the TV to watch an old movie, King of Kings. "I'm glad you asked me to rent this, Luna," said Jim. "Okay, so this movie is pretty long, but it's one of my favorites, and I think every Christian should know what Jesus did for us. Now, like I told you, try to be strong. If anything is making you too sad, we'll turn it off. Luna had never seen a Jesus movie before because her parents didn't think she was old enough to handle the emotions they raised. But she quickly lost herself in this one, partly because her father had said it was his favorite, and she wanted to like what he liked, but also because it was really fascinating. Jesus was so sweet, wasn't he? She asked her parents during the part where Jesus healed the blind man's eyes. But soon the movie began to make Luna nervous. Once Judas kissed Jesus on the cheek, Luna's stomach pulled into knots, and her heart began to beat faster. "Oh no," she breathed. Jim paused the movie. "I know, sweetheart. Nobody likes this part. It's okay. This happened a long time ago. Are you going to be okay?" "Yeah, I'm okay." He patted her knee and unpaused the movie. Jesus was brought to Pontius Pilate. Luna's mouth opened. The soldiers began to beat Jesus. Luna practically stopped breathing and held her face with her hands. She knew Jesus' story. She had read and heard all about it in catechism class and church, but to actually see what happened to Jesus. Jim stopped the movie again, but Luna kept hearing him in her head saying, "I think every Christian should know what Jesus did for us," and she didn't want to let her father down. "I'm okay. I just have to breathe." Finally, the soldiers were nailing Jesus to the cross. That was it. Luna felt a strong surge of panic fill her entire being. She wanted to back up the wall all the way to the ceiling. She burst into tears. Jim paused the movie, and he and Lisa immediately held Luna. Luna couldn't speak. She was just sobbing her heart out. She was seeing flashes in her mind of the dead squirrel, which added to her agitation. "I don't know why people are so mean," cried Luna. "He was so good. How could they do that to him? All he wanted to do was help, and they killed him." "No wonder nobody's been like him for thousands of years. If they were, they probably hid because people are so mean. That makes me so angry. I'm so angry now." Pop! The light bulb in the lamp closest to Luna popped and went out, startling all three. They sat in the dim room for a few seconds until Lisa jumped up and retrieved a new bulb from the utility closet. "Why?" Luna practically begged her parents for answers as Lisa sat back down. "Why did they do that to Jesus? Why couldn't they just listen to him and make the world better?" "We won't let you watch another movie like that ever again. We're sorry." Jim brushed a tear from his eye as he looked at Luna, who was trying to stop sobbing by taking deep breaths. That night, though Luna had exhausted herself crying, she still couldn't sleep. It wasn't unusual for her to be so wound up that she couldn't sleep till midnight or 1 a.m., but it was already 3 a.m. She lay with her eyes closed, thinking about how it had been thousands of years since anyone like Jesus or the Muslim prophet Muhammad had been born. Sure, there had been extraordinary people like Joan of Arc, Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., and Mother Teresa, but there was something different about Muhammad and Jesus, something that made people deify them. Muhammad and Joan of Arc led armies. Jesus, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, and Martin Luther King Jr. preached peace, so Luna couldn't figure it out. Who knows? Maybe one day people will worship Mother Teresa or MLK as God. Maybe another Jesus or Muhammad will show his or her face, even if threatened with death. But Luna didn't think there was time to wait for maybe one day. Whatever it was that made Jesus and Muhammad different, Luna knew the earth needed it. Now. Even outside of singular terrible events like 9/11, the world in general was floundering. Though Luna and her family lived comfortably, very comfortably. Her parents often surprised her with vacations, and her Aunt Marie had more than one vacation home. She knew about poverty. She felt very deeply how profound the suffering was on earth at this point in time, and she suspected that most people had become numb to it because they were just trying to make ends meet. It's like everybody's sleeping. Somebody has to help people feel again. Otherwise, we'll destroy ourselves and everything around us. She loved all people, and she especially loved the planet, so she feared this greatly. Well, what about me? I'm here. God, she whispered. She stopped right there. She knew this was a huge moment. She knew what she was about to do was a very big deal, and could and probably would change her life drastically. But she was brave, because she knew God was with her, and that if anybody could help her, it was God. And she was brave because of who she was, because she somehow knew that this was why she was alive. God, I give my life to you. Make me your vessel. Take Luna for your will. She swallowed and said the next part because she knew it was an important part of her pledge. People in the Bible said such things. I will even die for you. There. She had spit it out. And she felt better, much better. She had expected to feel afraid, but because her soul felt better, she knew she had done exactly what she was supposed to have done. It was right for her to become God's vessel. That did make her nervous, especially after seeing what happened to Jesus. But Jesus was in his 30s before he began preaching, so she felt like she had a lot of time ahead of her during which to prepare for whatever God wanted her to do. Her mind was filled with disturbing images of war and Jesus' death, and she couldn't sleep almost the entire night. She finally dozed off at daybreak. Because she was so exhausted from lack of sleep, her parents allowed her to stay home from school that day to recover. Even though her soul felt better, Luna was in a bit of a sad funk for the rest of the week. The scenes of Jesus' torture and death replayed in her mind in vivid color. "5:30 p.m., Thursday, May 15th, 2003. 9-year-old Sonny was outside in the backyard playing his mother's guitar. Right around this time last year, he'd picked it up and taught himself to play. It had only taken him 2 weeks to learn and a month and a half to master. Whenever he played it, he felt her a little more than usual. He had just finished playing the first song he'd learned, Dust in the Wind by Kansas, when he saw something in the grass. He put down the guitar and ran over to it. It was a yellow and black garter snake. It had 2 gashes in its scaly skin and was moving very slowly. "Oh no, you poor little guy. Did a cat get you?" Sonny and his mother had raised a baby bird once, and last spring he saved another one when it fell out of its tree. But his father didn't let him raise that baby bird, and instead took it to the county animal control office, telling Sonny to stop bringing him problems. But as he looked at the injured creature and remembered his promise to his mother that day on the beach, Sonny's kind and loving heart made his decision for him. He didn't even consider not helping the poor thing. He figured he would just have to do it in secret. Sonny gently picked up the snake. It slowly lifted its head to look at Sonny, and to him, it looked sad and afraid. "Don't be afraid, okay? I'll help you. You just can't tell anyone, okay?" Sonny smiled at his own joke. The snake lowered its head and curled up on Sonny's hand. Glancing around to see if anyone was looking, he carefully carried the injured snake into the house. He tiptoed behind the couch where his father and Wes were sitting and watching TV. They were laughing and didn't notice him. "I know just what to put you in." He went into his room and closed the door. He set the snake on his bed and went to his closet. He opened it and took out a shallow, bright blue plastic box with a matching lid. He dumped its contents, crayons, coloring books, and markers, onto the closet floor and then closed the closet door. Heading over to his bed, he saw that the snake hadn't moved. Gently he poked it. It lifted its head a little. "Whew," he whispered. "I wasn't sure if you were all right. Okay, little guy. I'm going to put you in your new home, at least for a while, okay? You'll be safe in it while you get better." He picked the snake up carefully and placed it inside the box. Grabbing the lid and a pair of scissors, he made air holes in the lid that were too small for the snake to get through. He snapped the lid shut and then put the box under his bed while he went for something to hold water. Friday, May 16th, 2003. Luna hesitated before going to bed that night. She'd been having even more trouble sleeping lately, and she feared seeing where the shadows would crawl in her room tonight. Her parents noticed her tenseness right away, and Lisa perched on the edge of Luna's bed, her hand gently against the side of Luna's face, and Jim in the doorway. They asked how she was doing. Luna admitted right away that she was feeling scared. Sometimes the shadows in my room move." Luna burst into tears. Lisa held her, and Jim sat down on the other side of Luna's bed to hold her too. "Oh, Princess," said Jim in his most comforting voice, "that's just your eyes playing tricks on you. Sometimes things appear to be wiggling, especially in the dark." Luna looked up at him, blinking her big, tearful green eyes at him. "Really?" "Yep. The human body is tricky," said Lisa, "and you can't always trust it. Not your sight, hearing, or touch. You really have to pay attention to your perception to understand the true reality of life." "In other words," Jim said, "don't worry. You're so young. There's nothing to be scared of. Promise?" "Promise." She snuggled under the covers as her parents left her room, turning off the light and closing the door. In the darkness, Luna smiled, and uncharacteristically fell right to sleep. 5 a.m. Saturday, May 17th, 2003. Sonny woke to the sound of his bedroom door bursting open and then the light being flicked on. He sat up instantly and rubbed his eyes. It was his father, who was now searching around Sonny's room. Ralph brought up the blue plastic container Sonny had put the injured garter snake in. He opened it easily and then held it out to Sonny. It was empty except for some poop and the paper cup of water. Sonny's stomach turned. "Didn't I tell you no more animals?" yelled Ralph. "Snakes don't just wander into houses by their own choice." Tears sprang to Sonny's eyes. He'd seen his father this angry at his brothers, but he'd always been a good boy and never got into trouble. "Quit your crying! I told you, no more crying!" Sonny couldn't stop crying. Ralph smacked Sonny across the face. Sonny held his face and cried harder. "I said quit your crying! I'm the one who woke up this early in the motherfucking morning, my motherfucking day off, 'cause I got a goddamn snake was round my neck." Ralph stormed out of Sonny's room. Sonny thought it was over, but the next moment, Ralph burst back into the room, holding his belt. Ralph had never used his belt on Sonny before. "No, Mama!" "Turn over!" commanded Ralph. "No!" "Turn over!" "No, Daddy, I'm sorry. I won't do it again." Movement caught Sonny's tear-filled eyes. He saw part of a face and dark hair in the doorway. One of his brothers. "You want something to cry about? I'll give you something to cry about," muttered Ralph as he grabbed Sonny's arm and flipped him over. Sonny felt the snap of the belt on his butt. "Ow! Daddy, please, I'm sorry!" Ralph ignored him and whipped his butt 4 more times as Sonny howled. It wasn't as hard as he'd seen his father hit his brothers when he was drunk. Sonny knew Ralph was holding back and was grateful for it, but it still hurt a lot. "Okay, Dad!" cried a voice. Ralph didn't hit Sonny again, so Sonny slowly turned to see who it was. All of his brothers were there, Wes standing in front of Curtis and Brad. "Dad?" drawled Curtis as calmly and carefully as he could. reminding Sonny of how their mother used to talk to Ralph when he was upset. He's had enough. He's sorry. I guarantee it. He's just a kid. He won't stop crying till you leave the room. Huffing and puffing, Ralph stared at Wes and Curtis. Brad was there, but hiding behind them. Sonny was afraid for them. They were afraid too, he knew. But then Ralph suddenly calmed. "You had a snake in here," Ralph almost whined. "It got loose, and I found it practically coiled round my goddamn neck just now, little fucker." "What'd you do with him, Dad?" sobbed Sonny. "He's a nice snake." "What? Nice snake?" "I didn't kill him. I threw his ass outside is what I did. That's where animals belong. Outside. Understand?" Sonny nodded, wiping his nose with the back of his hand. "All right, y'all go back to bed," said Ralph. "It's too early to get up. Go on." Sonny's brothers looked at him with pity, but they all left because Ralph was holding the door open for them. Once they were all out, Ralph left too, flicked off the light, and then closed the door behind him. Sonny got back under the covers, trembling and still crying. All right, that's it. See you next time.